Dear friends, during the last lecture, we looked at certain aspects of the American political system and also some issues connected to the administrative system. And we did say that neither of the two can survive without the other. We saw how over a time the patronage system of the bureaucracy had evolved into a merit system. With 100% patronage system being there, it then came down to 10% merit. But at the end of the day, right now, 90% of bureaucratic and administrative appointments are merit-based. However, that 10%, mostly comprising of officers of the SES, the Senior Executive Service, are generally still political appointees. And maybe their background, professional track record, and educational qualifications are kept in view, but they definitely do not go through any merit-based competitive system. They generally get those positions, which are the top-ranking positions in the bureaucracy, as a result of political reward. So whichever government comes in power brings in, under this spoiled systems, lots of very high-ranking people to fill in these slots. We also looked at the mechanism available to the civil servant as far as abuse of civil servants' position goes. Various issues regarding promotions, transfers, appointments, discipline, etc. 3 agencies had been established to deal with different aspects of the civil service system. And of course, OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, is the most important. And we saw that it combines the activities of what we do in Pakistan through 2 agencies. This single office does the work both of Establishment Division and the Civil Service Commission. So the Public Service Commission, responsible for recruitments in Pakistan, and the Establishment Division, responsible for promotions, career development, disciplining of civil servants. All these activities are performed by the OPM in the United States, whereas 2 other agencies are available. And one of them deals with units where there is labor, basically industrial units, and facilitates the industrial workers and managers to come to certain conclusion or agreement in case of disputes which they are unable to solve on their own. One of the organizations, very, very important, which we did not mention last time, I'd like to mention today, is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. ये निहायत ही इंपॉर्टेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, वो इसलिए बिकॉज इन द यूएस द अमेरिकन्स ऑलवेज से we provide equal opportunity to everyone, and that is the reason why we attract so many people, so much talent, so highly trained and qualified manpower, because we are providing equal merit-based opportunity to each and everyone as far as appointment goes, as far as promotion goes. So what does this mean? From the American point of view, this means that they are going to get a talent pool, merit-based, of people willing to work and contribute to the knowledge economy. ये कमीशन दोषी 1978 में एस्टैब्लिश हुई, well, not very old, and it attempts to eliminate discrimination on the basis of sex, race, religion, color, national origin, disability or age. These 8 factors extremely important. यानी आपको कोई भी, अगर आप मेरिट पर पूरे उतर रहे हैं, क्वालिफाई कर रहे हैं, तो ये कहकर वापस नहीं भेज सकता कि जी आप मेल है या फीमेल हैं, आपका रंग काला, गोरा या पीला है, या आप जोइश हैं या मुस्लिम हैं, या आप किसी खास रेस से बिलोंग करते हैं। खासतौर पे ब्लैक्स के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट था, क्योंकि एक लंबी हिस्ट्री है यूएस की जिसमें ब्लैक्स ने फील किया है कि दे हैव बीन नॉट गिवन जस्टिस, दैट दे हैव बीन डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड अगेंस्ट। ये फीलिंग जो अफ्रीकन डिसेंट के लोगों में आई थी, और जो प्रोटेस्ट और मूवमेंट्स उस सिलसिले में चली, यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड ऑफ मार्टिन किंग लूथर, इन सब मूवमेंट्स की वजह से इस किस्म की एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सेटअप हुई जिसका बेसिक रोल यही था। और उसके अलावा नेशनल ओरिजिन, अगर आप पाकिस्तान से, हिंदुस्तान से, चीन से, कहीं से भी जाके वहां सेटल हुए और अप्लाई किया जॉब के लिए, इस बेसिस पर आपको नहीं मुस्तरद किया जा सकता कि आपकी नेशनैलिटी कहीं और की है, और अभी तक आप naturalized American नहीं है। Of course, you have to fulfill the legal requirements for residence in the US. Disability or age, very important. यानी जब आप एज और डिसेबिलिटी की बात करते हैं तो आप vulnerable people की बात कर रहे हैं, जो आमतौर पे सोसाइटी मार्जिन्स पे पुश कर देती। तो इन तमाम हालात में discrimination is forbidden. इसकी हैयत क्या है? It consists of 5 members appointed by the President for a term of 5 years with approval of the Senate. 5 मेंबरान हैं इक्वल एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी कमीशन के, और 5 साल ही इनकी मुद्दत है, टेन्योर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, और ये प्रेसिडेंट अपॉइंट करता है, और आमतौर पे जैसे दूसरी पोस्ट में है, सेनेट उनको कंफर्म करती है। अच्छा, now looking at the structure of the civil service, we have to see how the various personnel are treated and classified. हमारे यहाँ आपने पाकिस्तान में देखा होगा कि रैंक सिस्टम है और डिफरेंट ऑक्यूपेशनल ग्रुप्स बने हुए हैं, जिसमें पुलिस सर्विस भी है, फॉरेन सर्विस भी है, कस्टम्स एंड एक्साइज भी है, पाकिस्तान एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सर्विसेज भी हैं। हमारे यहां रैंक पे क्लासिफिकेशन चलती है, लेकिन यूएस में क्लासिफिकेशन इज बेस्ड ऑन पोजीशन. उसका क्या मतलब है? दैट इट शैल बी बेस्ड, इट इज बेस्ड ऑन ड्यूटीज, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज एंड क्वालिफिकेशंस. यानी आप किसी लेवल पर भी एंट्री कर सकते हैं, और वो जो एंट्री का लेवल होगा क्लासिफाइड होगा, उसकी पोजीशन के मुताबिक क्लासिफिकेशन होगी. और आप जो काम कर रहे हैं, जो आपकी ड्यूटीज है, फंक्शंस हैं, और जो आपकी क्वालिफिकेशंस की बैकग्राउंड है, उन सब को मद्देनजर रखकर आपको रिक्रूट किया जाता है और एक खास पोजीशन पर अपॉइंट किया जाता है. अब कौन सी क्लासिफिकेशंस हैं? What are those classifications which are present in the US administrative system? One is the professional and scientific. Right at the outset, we see that how much emphasis there is on science and related technological aspects because of this. So, professional and scientific. फिर sub-professional and sub-scientific. Lower level positions. The nature of the work, though the field is the same, would be of a slightly lower level. Then another lumping together of clerical, administrative, and fiscal jobs. So the next classification on a position basis is that of the clerical, administrative, and fiscal. Then custodial, someone who is looking after things. Storekeeper comes to mind, for example, when you talk about custody. Mechanical, way back, mechanical with the Industrial Revolution, mechanical aspects, mechanical jobs in the society were very important. According to this system, we have 18 general schedule grades which determine the pay scales of the federal employees. So there is a general schedule grade 1 and it goes up to general schedule grade 18. जो 16 to 18 grades हैं, they comprise the senior executive service. This was created in 1978. And as we know that under the Civil Services Reform Act, this was the time when 90% of the civil service jobs of the federal level came within the purview of the merit-based system. So, these are the senior positions. ये वही पोजीशंस हैं जिनकी पहले हमने बात की, 9,000 के करीब ये जो फिल होती हैं without going through the procedure of the competitive exam and the merit system. ये वो high ranking positions हैं, heads of departments, heads of corporations, members of the regulatory commissions, who are awarded these jobs on a political basis. So generally, whichever party is coming into power, it will ensure, or rather, this is what happens, कि वो लोग जिन्होंने उस पार्टी को support किया था, during the elections, helped it come into power, वो इन positions पर फाइज कर दिए जाते. Good or bad, that's another question. But it is very clear, it's constitutional, it's legal. हमारे यहाँ ऐसा होता है लेकिन क्या लॉ में उसकी गुंजाइश है? क्या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ये अलाउ करती है? हमारे यहां भी एज पॉलिटिकल फेवर जब भी कोई गवर्नमेंट नहीं आती है, अपने लोगों को कोशिश करती है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा नवाजे और सिविल सर्व की पोस्ट पे लगा दे। इसी तरह एम्बेसडर्स की पोस्ट पे आपको बहुत से पॉलिटिकल अपॉइंटीज मिलेंगे। सो अंडर सच कंडीशंस, things generally in our country have not worked out very well, and there have been a lot of examples of mega scandals where these senior heads, in coordination with the political bosses whom they help to get elected, go in for a lot of corruption, and we have examples of many mega scandals. For the last so many years, this has been happening. Here I would also like to add that during military rule, many service and retired military personnel get inducted into the service, into the civil service. And they also hold those very senior, sometimes mid-level positions also. तो मार्शल लॉ के ज़माने में हम देखते हैं कि एक और किस्म का स्पॉइल सिस्टम हमारे मुल्क में शुरू हो जाता है। Although there is some built-in, there has been some provisions built into the laws to accommodate a certain number of military personnel in the civil service. But generally, when you look at their actual number, it by far exceeds the number envisaged in those rules. तो गोया हमारा है तो मेरिट बेस्ड सिस्टम, लेकिन अक्सर उसमें वो पेट्रनेज स्पॉइल सिस्टम का आंसर भी आ जाता है। पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के जमाने में पॉलिटिकल जो पर्सनालिटीज हैं उनके फेवरेट्स आ जाते हैं। मार्शल लॉ के जमाने में मिलिट्री रूलर के जो फेवरेट्स हैं वो आ जाते हैं। सो थ्योरेटिकली वी हैव अ मेरिट बेस्ड ब्यूरोक्रेसी, बट इट गेट्स वेरी वेरी डाइल्यूटेड एट टाइम्स। अब ये कह रहे हैं जो लोग 16 से 18 में आते हैं, सुपर ग्रेड्स कहा जाता है इनको, comprising the senior executive service, they are going to perform the highest level of management functions. And generally they are expected to be, and generally it is actually the case, because they are nominees of the president and have to go through the Senate for the confirmation and all that. So Senate won't confirm people who are not fit for jobs generally. So they are experts in professional capacity as against the professional amateurs of the British administrative system. हमारे यहाँ भी वही सिस्टम है, यानी हम एक ऑफिसर एक बंदे को सिविल सर्विस में इंडक्ट करने के लिए उसकी कोई स्पेशलाइजेशन नहीं देखते। क्या उसने फिजिक्स में या इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी में क्वालिफिकेशंस की हुई हैं? नो, वी रिलाई extremely and primarily on the civil service examination to screen out and to select students. Candidates, to screen out candidates and select officers. तो चूंकि कोई स्पेशलाइज्ड क्वालिफिकेशंस लेड डाउन नहीं है, इसलिए इनको वो प्रोफेशनल एमेचर्स कह रहा है, यानी वो जो बाद में ट्रेनिंग लेकर या ऑन द जॉब एक्सपीरियंस लेकर प्रोफेशनल बन जाते हैं, जब आते हैं वो एमेचर्स हैं. That is a different aspect of administration, applicable to the British system, but not to the US system. US system में highest level पे जो लोग आ रहे हैं, they are coming through the process of nomination by the president, confirmation by the Senate, and then they are able to hold their job. और जैसे मैंने पहले कहा, ये वो 9,000 के करीब लोग हैं जिनका रोल पॉलिसी मेकिंग में बहुत बड़ा है. और चूंकि दे आर क्लोज टू द पॉलिटिकल मास्टर्स, जो भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी पावर में है, तो पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन का जो प्रोसेस है वो थोड़ा सा स्मूथ हो जाता है. ये लोग टेक्निकल हैं, स्पेशलिस्ट हैं, होपफुली the right people have been selected. तो जब ये पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेशन की एडवाइस पॉलिटिशियंस को देते हैं, तो क्योंकि ये उनके अपने अपॉइंटेड हैं, they will listen to them. And this may be a blend of specialists and generalists. By specialists we could mean people who have done their PhDs or their postdocs in technical subjects. On the other hand, it could be people with a liberal background who have through the process come up very high but cannot be considered as professionals. So senior executive service super grades वाली जो है 9,000 लोग जिसमें होते हैं, huge number. This is a blend of generalists and specialists. हमारे यहाँ हाईएस्ट लेवल पे, जैसे मैंने अर्ज किया, सेक्रेटरी लेवल पे, हेड्स ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट्स के लेवल पे, कॉरपोरेशंस जो गवर्नमेंट की हैं उनके हेड्स, they are generally civil servants. However, some proportion of it may have come from outside at very higher levels, especially so in the corporations. Generally in the main administrative system, you will hardly find a secretary who is not from within the system. But you may find a lot of ambassadors who are not from the foreign service. So we also have a blend of outsiders and insiders, which varies from time to time depending upon what kind of civilian or military government you have in the country at that moment. And these positions are also called accepted service. In other words, they are an exception. Exception because they don't have to go through the regular merit-based system. So sometimes these 9,000 people outside the regular merit system are called members of the accepted service. As an exception. They have come there as an exception. लेकिन वो बेस क्या है या बेस क्या होना चाहिए? Their professional qualifications. अब रिक्रूटमेंट कैसे होती है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम में यूएस के? The Office of Personnel Management conducts civil service examinations for federal jobs. And this examination is of a practical nature. ये बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है उनके और हमारे एग्जामिनेशन में. हमारा ज़्यादा थ्योरी बेस्ड है, यानी आपने इतने सब्जेक्ट्स जो हैं कंपल्सरी और ऑप्शनल उनको अच्छी तरह पढ़ लेना है, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकल का बहुत कम उसमें दखल है. हम प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स जो हैं उनको कैप्चर करने की कोशिश करते हैं. जब कैंडिडेट्स अपने इंटरव्यू के लिए आते हैं या किसी हद तक वो साइकोलॉजिकल टेस्टिंग में कवर करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि उनके ट्रेट्स क्या हैं, लेकिन जो ओपीएम कंडक्ट करती है एग्जामिनेशंस, they are basically of a practical nature. Now in Pakistan we have a system where you get promoted from one grade to the other, then the next and so on. Unless something untowards happen and you get thrown out of the system. So basically the entry level is grade 17 or maybe 16 in our civil service in some cases. In all the occupational groups, the first posting or the lowest rung, the lowest level is grade 17. When you're talking about the federal service. And then you move on, फिर आपकी promotions होती रहती. लेकिन यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में इंडक्शन सिविल सर्वेंट के किसी भी लेवल पे हो सकती है, लैटरल एंट्री है, उसमें एज की भी कोई ऐसी फिक्स रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है फॉर पीपल हु आर कमिंग एट अ लेटेस्ट स्टेज. Naturally, if you're coming to join the civil service at a later stage, you would be older. यहाँ तो हमारा फिक्स्ड है, 28 होगा, 31 होगा, whatever, with relaxation. But in the US, there is this lateral entry. You can come at any level. So उसका एक ये फायदा और होता है कि आप गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट सेक्टर में मोबिलिटी हो जाती है. आपके यूनिवर्सिटी में एक प्रोफेसर बैठे हैं, वो भी आ सकते हैं सिविल सर्विस में. आपके मिडिल या टॉप मैनेजमेंट में बैठे हुए हैं इन द प्राइवेट सेक्टर इन अ बिग कॉरपोरेशन, वो भी एस्पायर कर सकते हैं और प्रोसेस फॉलो करके सिविल सर्विस के एक लेवल पे आ सकते हैं. सो ये जो मोबिलिटी है, this brings the private and public sector together and reduces the friction between the two, the misunderstanding between the two. Look at the amount of misunderstanding and friction we have between the private and public sector. Each one thinks the other one is out to exploit. और रिक्रूटमेंट में examinations include written tests, oral tests, performance tests, and ranking tests. तो आप उनकी एजुकेशन एवेल्युएट कर रहे हैं, जो भी पहले ट्रेनिंग हो चुकी है वो, और उनका अगर जॉब एक्सपीरियंस है तो वो भी आप एवेल्युएट कर रहे हैं. So you have, in addition to, in Pakistan we have the written and the oral tests primarily, but you have performance tests there and you have ranking tests there, which will tell you what rank, up to what rank this person is eligible to enter the civil service. So the level of difficulty of the exam would cover the rank spectrum also. आप उस इम्तिहान के बाद ये भी अंदाजा लगा लेंगे कि इसको इस रैंक में रखना है या उससे ऊपर वाली या उससे ऊपर वाली रैंक में के लिए ये फिट है. So a slightly different approach towards recruitment than we have in Pakistan. Very interesting now. Basic qualifications prescribed नहीं है for recruitment into the civil service. हमारे यहाँ तो ये ज़रूरी है कि आपने एटलीस्ट बैचलर्स डिग्री की हुई हो, और वो भी सेकंड क्लास एटलीस्ट होना चाहिए. But there is no such bar in the US. But this doesn't mean that people without any qualifications get there. It is just not possible. Because you are going to go through a battery of tests of a very high standard. But this is no doubt an interesting aspect that legally, formally, according to the rules, कोई कैद नहीं है. लेकिन आपने रेजिडेंशियल क्वालिफिकेशन जरूर फुलफिल करनी है, जो भी हो. अगर किसी सर्विस के लिए रेजिडेंशियल क्वालिफिकेशन है, that you have to be a resident of the United States, of a resident of a particular state, then it has to be fulfilled. आपको पता है कि हमारे यहाँ रेजिडेंशियल जो आपकी बैकग्राउंड है उसकी वजह से कुछ मुराद भी मिल जाती हैं. There are certain quotas and seats fixed for certain areas. Even for women there are special seats. However, in the UK system, in the American system, in the US system, a residential qualification could be there. अब जो लोग पास कर लेते हैं इम्तिहान को, उनकी एक लिस्ट बनाई जाती है और वो होगी उनके मेरिट या ग्रेड के बेसिस पर. यानी आप जिसका अच्छा ग्रेड है वो ऊपर होगा, जिसका उससे कम उससे कम उससे कम. हमारे यहाँ भी ऐसे ही होता है. After the written examination and the orals and all those interviews, etc., a consolidated merit list is prepared, on the basis of which you get allocated to a particular occupational group, depending upon what you have opted for. आप किसी भी ऑक्यूपेशनल ग्रुप के लिए नंबर 1 पे ऑप्ट कर सकते हैं. इट कुड बी द पोस्टल सर्विस ऑफ पाकिस्तान इफ यू वांट टू. तो आपका जो मेरिट है पाकिस्तान में, जो आपका मेरिट होता है, उसको इक्वेट किया जाता है विद द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ सीट्स इन अ पर्टिकुलर ग्रुप. और अगर आप उस मेरिट में आप आ जाते हैं, विज़ावी बाकी लोगों की ऑप्शंस क्या हैं, तो आपको आपका ग्रुप मिल जाता है. अगर नहीं तो आपको सेकंड थर्ड ऑप्शन मिल जाती है, अगर आपने क्वालिफाई किया, पास किया, एंड आई कम विद इन दैट लिस्ट ऑफ द फाइनलिस्ट. तो अब ये रिक्रूटमेंट के लिए एग्जाम हो गया, मुख्तलिफ रैंक्स के लिए डिटर्मिनेशन हो गई, फिर ग्रेड्स के बेसिस पर एक लिस्ट बन गई इन द यूएस सिस्टम. एग्जाम्स की मेथोडोलॉजी इनकी भी डिफरेंट है. 2 किस्म के एग्जाम्स हैं. एक तो जैसे हमारा होता है, हमारे सारे एग्जाम्स जनरली ऐसे होते हैं, असेंबल्ड. दैट इज वेयर simultaneous exams of large groups, generally written exams, to fill in positions of clerical nature. यहाँ पे लोअर पोजीशंस के लिए असेंबल्ड एग्जाम्स होते हैं. हमारे यहाँ तमाम पोजीशंस के लिए असेंबल्ड एग्जाम्स होते हैं. यानी बस एग्जाम में सब लोग इकट्ठे बैठकर एक ही वक्त पर एग्जाम लेते हैं. लेकिन यूएस के सिस्टम में इट इज ओनली for the clerical positions that you have the concept of a group exam or assembled exam. Then the other category is the unassembled exam. This is very interesting, that you don't actually take a formal exam. Up, you try to judge the person by face-to-face interviews. Generally, for higher positions, even in the private sector, you don't take exams. You see the track record of that person. What has he done till now? If you are going to appoint CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you are not going to take an exam from individuals who might be suitable for the job. So for these higher posts, there is just interviews, and you can get testimonies from relevant quarters. American setup में testimony को बहुत important दिया जाता है, lots of importance, कि आपके पुराने employers क्या कहते हैं आपके बारे में, all relevant quarters क्या कहते हैं आपके बारे में, बस एक किस्म के references जिसको हम कहते हैं, उसको बहुत importance दिया जाता है. And generally, perhaps unlike our country, the testimonies or the references are genuine. वो जो लोग testify करते हैं या testimony देते हैं किसी के हक में, वो सही बात कर रहे होते हैं, वो ऐसी बात कर रहे होते हैं जो due to evidence, due to performance of that person, उस पर उनको यकीन होता है. So, with these interviews, there could be a number of interviews. With these interviews, for higher jobs, there are a number of interviews. With the interviews and the testimony and the track record and all that, you can really judge or estimate the potential of a person for a particular job. तो ये तो हो गया जो आपका unassembled exam है. और एक जो general आपका Federal Service का entrance exam होता है, that is for the professional and administrative careers, जैसे हमारे यहाँ होता है. अच्छा, how do you get finally into the system? When a vacancy occurs in any agency, agency का word जो है वो US में काफी commonly इस्तेमाल होता है. And it is generic. यानी डिपार्टमेंट भी एजेंसी है, हमारे यहाँ जैसे मिनिस्ट्री है वो भी एजेंसी होगी, कॉरपोरेशन भी गवर्नमेंट की एजेंसी होगी, वगैरह वगैरह. रेगुलेटरी कमीशंस जो है उनकी वो भी एजेंसीज हैं. So in administrative terminology of the US, agency is generic. It refers to almost all entities of the government, except the judiciary maybe. So he's saying, when a vacancy occurs in a federal agency, it is filled in by appointing officer from amongst the first 3 persons on the eligible list for that job. So we saw before that a list had been prepared, जिसको आप merit base पर कह सकते हैं, यानी grading जो उनकी आई थी उसके basis पर. तो उस लिस्ट पर जो पहले 3 लोग हैं उनको कंसिडर किया जाएगा to fill that vacancy. और वो कौन करेगा? अपॉइंटिंग ऑफिसर. और रूल्स में जिस लेवल का कि आप रिक्रूटमेंट कर रहे हैं उसके कुछ 2-4 टीयर्स ऊपर शायद वो अपॉइंटिंग ऑफिसर हो. तो आफ्टर ऑल दोज एग्जाम्स जो आपका मेरिट आया है, पहले 3 टॉप मोस्ट लोगों का हक बनता है कि उनको जो भी जॉब अवेलेबल हो उनमें से एक जो अपॉइंटिंग ऑफिसर है जो उसको सूटेबल समझे वो उसको अपॉइंट कर देगा अपनी एजेंसी में अगेंस्ट दैट जॉब. अब बहुत बड़ा पार्ट जो है किसी भी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम का कि आपने लोग सेलेक्ट कर लिए और हो सकता है वो जर्नलिस्ट बैकग्राउंड के भी हों। अब आपने उनको ट्रेन करके प्रोफेशनलाइज करवाना है। सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। Perhaps the most important aspect of any civil service, of any administrative system, is its training policy. How do you train people, keeping their background in mind, keeping their envisaged career paths, and of course, the nature of job they are supposed to do. Again, this is a little bit different from what we do here. Internship. In case of pre-entry training in Pakistan, we have academies. We have the overall Civil Services Academy. And then we have specialized academies for different occupational groups. Academy for Trade and Commerce, Academy for Taxation, tax people, Academy for postal people, training institutes for each and every occupational group. The police, for example. We provide them training in those academies. But there is this concept of internship in the US system, that you will go as an intern somewhere. It could be in an administrative office. So you're getting, in a way, on-the-job kind of training as pre-entry training. As yet, you have not held any positions. Before that, you are being given this training. So you will go as an intern in a related organization or upon the kind of professional work you are expected to do. In case of people who are going to work in areas of crafts and skills, they will go do apprenticeship. As a mechanic, you might have to do apprenticeship. As an electrical engineer, you might have to do apprenticeship, because skills or crafts are involved there. We don't have this system. We have very clear-cut pre-service training institutes for each and every occupational group of a civil service. And who manages all this training activity? It is managed by the Office of Personnel Management, OPM. And it also involves other agencies into it. So the OPM can itself provide training. We look at the kind of training they primarily provide. Or the federal agencies, again, agency could be any government entity. Universities and specialized institutions are involved. Very interesting. Doesn't happen in Pakistan. Civil servants do not come for training to any university. Hardly ever. Maybe some programs were developed in the past to impart MBAs to those who had joined the finance services or the taxation services in universities, but that is a one-off. In the US, as a matter of routine, universities and other specialized institutions, which are generally again connected to universities, are involved in the training effort. Now, in just mentioning some of these, We have the Maxwell School of Public Affairs in Syracuse University, upstate New York, I believe. Then we have Institute of Public Administration in the University of Michigan. We have the School of Business and Civil Administration at Columbia. Now Columbia, Harvard, and even Michigan and Syracuse are universities which have a standing. So reputable universities. So we have the Harvard School of Public Administration. And then there are some universities with institutes offering both courses on what is called private and public administration. Again, that concept of gelling the two sectors together gets a boost from here. And of course, Harvard also has the Kennedy School of Government. So all these training, all these universities are involved in this mega training program. And another type of training which is conducted, this one by the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, उसका नाम है Interagency Reimbursable Training Program. इसका ये मतलब है कि we conduct such programs in our National Institutes of Public Administration in Pakistan. Now we are talking about in-service training. And also at the Administrative Staff College, which is now has the status of a university. This reimbursable training program means that OPM will be providing a relevant training, relevant for many agencies, members of many agencies, officers or personnel of many agencies, relevant to many agencies on a common platform for members of those agencies, and it would be paid for by the agency. So that department or that organization or that corporation which is sending its employees for training will have to pay for it. Hence that reimbursable aspect. In Pakistan also, the trainings which are conducted by the by the National Institute of Public Administration and what used to be the Pakistan Administrative Staff College, now a university, are also reimbursable. For every candidate, for every officer who attends that training, the sponsoring agency from where he's posted pays for that. And since the trainings are quite elaborate and may take 2 to 4 to 6 months, they have to pay quite a bit for it, in lakhs of rupees. And let us not forget that at the highest level also, along with the civil service training institutions, the National Defense University also trains civil servants who are aspiring for very high posts, and that is also reimbursable. And this is a joint training with members of the armed forces. So here we have a gelling of the civil and military bureaucracy in this training program. Promotions. In Pakistan, generally promotions are at the whims of many people. And the most important instrument which is kept before the promotion board to assess whether one officer should be promoted to the next board or not, to the next grade or not, is called the ACR, or the Annual Confidential Report. That primarily talks about his performance in past and is rather sketchy. Not too much details. But we see that somewhat different and more elaborate system is available to assess candidates aspiring for promotions in the US. There are 4 types of efficiency ratings. So what are they looking for? They're looking for efficiency. The first one is the production record system. This is a little bit like our ACR, the Annual Confidential Report, that what kind of activities has that person been doing, and to what extent he has produced work, good work, the quality of his work. So that's the production record system. Then there's the trait rating system. This is another elaborate exercise. What are the traits of the individual? Hardworking, ethical, committed, personality traits. Negative, positive, mindset. How does he work as a member of team or as a leader of team, leadership qualities? So we have this complete trait rating system which is not present in our setup but is there in the US. And then a substantiating reports rating system. If someone is saying that you are good or bad, it has to be substantiated. So reports will be drawn from different quarters to substantiate the standing or what you think are the characteristics or traits or efficiency of that individual. And then personality inventory system. This comes closer to the trait rating system. What kind of a personality does the person have? Does he have the charisma? Does he have those leadership qualities? So we see that in the US, there is a whole spectrum of systems to do rating while promoting individuals, while promoting officers to higher positions. Now, pay and service conditions. Each pay plan has a number of grades with a range of salary steps within each grade along with allowances. This is very much comparable to our system. They are calling it a pay plan. In our system, for each grade, we have a pay beginning, a basic pay, and then increments, and then the final pay for that particular grade, and then you jump on to the next grade. So that's the range of the salary steps within each grade. You get an increment every year. And allowances. In Pakistan, we have a number of allowances, a medical allowance, could be a transport allowance, etc. When it comes to labor, there are more allowances, overtimes and stuff like that. So this is the pay package we are talking about. But one thing which also differentiates our pay plans and those of the US is that the difference between the lowest paid employee and the highest paid employee is not that much in the US. In our case, it's quite a bit. You might even find, with allowances and other things put together, the pay of the lowest and the highest employee. The highest employee might be getting more than 15 times the pay of the lowest or 20 times the pay of the lowest paid employee. That is not so in the US system. Another thing, this is related to the service conditions, that civil servants can become members of associations and the labor in the government organizations, in the public sector, can unionize. This is also true in Pakistan. Civil servants do have associations and can become member of associations. In fact, we have provincial employees, civil service employees associations and federal occupational group associations, etc. And the labor can unionize here also, except maybe in some departments which are known as essential services, where maybe this facility may not be able to the labor force, may not be available to the labor force. और क्या क्या सर्विस कंडीशंस हैं जिनकी बात हो सकती है? स्ट्राइक्स अलाउड नहीं है. सिविल सर्वेंट स्ट्राइक्स पर नहीं जा सकते, क्योंकि अगर सिविल सर्वेंट्स चले जाते हैं स्ट्राइक पे, द होल मशीनरी ऑफ द स्टेट विल गेट डेडलॉक्ड. इट विल कम टू अ ग्राइंडिंग हॉल्ट. तो इसलिए उनको अलाउड नहीं है स्ट्राइक पे जाना. इसी तरह पाकिस्तान में कभी कभी आपने सुना होगा कि क्लार्क्स ने हड़ताल कर दी है और स्ट्राइक पे चले गए. बट यू वुड नेवर हियर दैट सिविल सर्वेंट्स पर से गो ऑन स्ट्राइक. रिस्ट्रिक्टेड पॉलिटिकल राइट्स, ये तकरीबन हर जगह दुनिया में यही है, क्योंकि क्रिटिसाइज नहीं होना. नहीं, इलेक्शन में आप वोट तो दोगे, बट यू कांट politic. You can't be a supporter of a political party, or you can't contest an election. पाकिस्तान में तो आप रिटायरमेंट के 2 साल के बाद जाकर क्वालिफाई करते हैं टू बिकम पोलिटिसाइज्ड एंड टू कंटेस्ट एन इलेक्शन. सिविल सर्वेंट्स जो पाकिस्तान में है, you have to take a break of 2 years after retirement to do so. तो खासी हद तक पॉलिटिकल राइट्स रिस्ट्रिक्टेड हैं, बोथ इन द यूएस एंड इन पाकिस्तान. रिटायरमेंट एज भी डिफरेंट है. अब पता नहीं इसकी वजह क्या है. हमारे यहाँ रिटायरमेंट एज 60 है, वहां 65 से 70, 65 to 70 years. Maybe because the average age is much higher in the United States. They've got better health care, they can manage to work energetically even beyond 65. But you have an option to retire once you are 65 to 70 with full benefits. In Pakistan, as we all know, the retirement age is 60 years. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ एक और सिलसिला चलता रहता है, उसको कहते हैं एक्सटेंशंस का सिलसिला. Civil servants who are performing very well in the eyes of the politicians, the political masters, the government which is in power, the political reps of the government which is in power, maybe the ministers or the prime minister. If those people think that a particular civil servant is doing very well, and there will be a loss as far as the working of state matters is concerned, if he were to go home at the age of 60, retire that is, they give those people an extension. आम तौर पे 2 से 3 साल की एक्सटेंशन दी जाती है कि जनाब आपको 2-3 साल और काम करने की इजाजत है. And we have also seen that these extensions had become a matter of course, and politicized civil servants mostly were getting these extensions. So this concept of extension is very much there in our setup, and it elongates the retirement age of our civil servants. So theoretically you're supposed to retire at 60, but if you know your way around and you can convince your political, the relevant political quarters, get into their good books, you may go on to 63, maybe get another extension. There have been examples of people who have been getting extensions upon extensions upon extensions. And then civil servants enjoy a pension facility. This is a big thing. And this is the security after retirement, which attracts many youngsters in Pakistan also to the civil service. Apart from the power that you exercise during your tenure as a civil servant, you are also getting a reasonable package, not a good package I would say, but a reasonable package, a subsistence package of pension once you retire. Of course, the pensions in the United States are much better. Now, a little bit about the process of the budget. Since this is one of the major administrative tasks of any administrative service, the financial year in the United States starts on 1st July and ends on 31st June. And unlike Pakistan, where we have a budget breakdown in our budget books for each and every department or ministry, there is a consolidated budget in the UK for all departments, in the US for all departments. The Office of Management Budget starts receiving the estimates of budget in mid-September from various agencies and finalizes them by January. So in mid-January, the President presents it to the House of Representatives. The House then has a number of committees called appropriation committees, which are based on departmental lines, and they examine this budget in detail. After passage by the House of Reps, this goes to the Senate. Again, the Senate refers it to its appropriations committees and they examine it. And in case of a difference of opinion between the Senate and the House of Reps, there is a mechanism available to sort out the differences. On the revenue side, because very big chunk of the budget pertains to the revenues you are raising from various sources, there is what is called a Ways and Means Committee in both the Senate and the House of Reps, and they look at how realistic are the revenue estimates. One very interesting thing is that unlike in Pakistan, the Congress, that is the Senate and the House of Reps together, is empowered to increase estimates. This is not so in Pakistan. Then the Congress adopts a series of appropriation and revenue bills, not one bill, not the finance bill as in Pakistan, not one bill, a series of appropriations and revenue bills, and sends them to the President for assent, for signing, which generally the President does sign. And a very important component of all this structure is the General Accounting Office. This is the watchdog. A very powerful person, the Comptroller General, who is more than the equivalent of our Auditor General. And he's appointed for 15 years. Imagine the amount of independence and continuity. So he is responsible, and his office, to control all the expenditure management and also audit it. Thank you very much.